Welcome to In Hoff We Trust, an 80s reboot overdrive supplemental podcast, I guess we'll call it.
Sure.
We're talking about Deutschland 83, Season 1, Episode 2, Brave Guy. I'm Rob Southgate, and with me is...
Chris Mao.
Hey, Chris, what'd you think of this episode?
You know what? I thought it was. I think in the after the first episode, we talked a little bit about how we weren't sure if they were going to pull some surprises, and I think they did a really nice job of getting us in, and I really liked it. I see really good things for this series, and I hope it can continue.
Yeah, I'm completely with you on that. I actually, after the last one, we were talking about all the things that we thought, wow, this is a little obvious. I hope this isn't playing out exactly like we expect it to. And, some of those things still might happen, but
sure.
I think they were setting us up for some real interesting stuff. Like, I didn't like when he said, boy, I'm all over the place here. When he said, I've been here for a few weeks already, I thought, oh, that's interesting, because I thought that, like, the stuff with the general's sister-in-law, I thought that would have already, I thought within a day or so that would have played out. No, we're talking, it's been weeks, and that's starting to play out. The daughter disappearing, she's off in some commune.
Yeah,
we didn't really talk about that so much last week, but kind of predictable, but interesting how that played out. And what is that place? I mean, it's like a commune. She's changing her name, and they're all like, "We're not into violence." What was that?
I don't know. I think I guess I couldn't think of the proper term other than I think commune's a great way to talk about it. Where she's just, it seems like she might be just like the little rich girl that doesn't know what to do. So she goes, "Well, I'm just going to go in this commune and live and hang out with, German boys in tight sweaters and tight pants and hang out." I think that's what it was. So,
speaking of the tight stuff, how about with the his girlfriend and the guy went down to the lake?
Yes.
And I mean, first of all, unexpected, but all right.
Yes. Very unexpected.
But the guy he had the tucked in super tight shirt with the little weird shorts. I was cracking up. I'm like, this is so 80s Germany.
Oh, it was. Well, it was typically 80s Germany, and then when they go swimming and they take off all their clothes, that's very shocking for Americans, but very European, where they just take off their clothes and go, and especially, tying back to s1e2 that we binged and talked about last week, where, the German guy says, we don't have a big problem with nudity. Germans don't have a big problem with nudity. They go naked all the time at beaches, so that is nothing shocking from that point of view.
It was just kind of shocking because I actually forgot I was watching a German show.
Right.
I mean, you realize it's in German, but I forgot it was a German show, and it's sitting here on Sundance. And, I'm so used to watching stuff on AMC where you don't see that it did stick out to me. But I love that it's not, a lot of times when that stuff happens, like if you watch Game of Thrones or you watch, these American productions, when they have the nudity, it's, number one, either completely gratuitous or over-sexualized. And I didn't think that was the case here. I mean, obviously they were starting to kiss and stuff, but it did seem like this is what they do. They go swimming.
Right.
They take their clothes off. I did enjoy that aspect of it and the comfortableness that was displayed there. But that's not what this show's about. The show's about the spying.
Yes, it is about the spying, and there was plenty of it in this show, and it was actually really nice and refreshing to see the kind of action that happened. So,
yeah. Now, do you think that's what we're going to get throughout? Do you think this is really going to be kind of the, I don't want to call it caper of the week, but the job of the week?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's the way they're going to do it, because it seems like, and I believe her name is Nina, who's the blonde spy girl who's kind of like the assassin who played the waitress in this episode.
Yes.
I believe she is the professional, and he just happens to fit the part. So she's going to be his leader and tell him what to do. And I think that's what it's going to be like. They're going to show up at every little thing where he has something to do. And I think that also explains some of the time lapsing, where this isn't hey, this isn't one day and then day 2 and then day 3 in his life. This is, hey, we're going from opportunity to opportunity for him to do some of his spy stuff. So
Right.
I mean, I kind of like it. I mean, I think it was very interesting, and I actually was kind of proud of him to think on his feet and not just kind of fold when he faced some issues. And like where the general and the NATO guy switched rooms, and they had the room bugged, and they had the passcodes and all that stuff. And then the guy switches, and it's like, hey, what the heck's going on here? So
when he had to switch the bug, I was completely nervous about that.
Oh yeah, and he almost got busted.
Tense.
He handled it pretty well. I mean, the guy looked at him. He's like, "Yeah, look, they all have dimmer switches." Which I think when we talk about a little bit later about some of the '80s things, that was a big thing in the '80s. Having a dimmer switch on the light. Where now it's like, okay, if you don't have a dimmer switch, you're wondering what's going on. So especially in a hotel.
Right.
So, but it was good. I mean, I thought when he because they basically just told him you need to figure it out, and he actually did it. It gave me a lot of. I hate to say hope, but I think it gave him a lot of credibility to the spy people that he can actually do the job. So,
well, I love that on their end, they were listening on the bug, and they didn't have any idea what was going on, really.
Sure.
Because they hear all the fumbling around, and he's going through things, and he puts the thing in his pocket, takes the bug to the next room. Even when they knocked the safe out,
oh yeah,
and they just hear that huge clank, and they're like, the hell's going on?
Yeah.
Because now they would have some kind of GoPro or something going.
Sure.
They'd definitely be seeing it'd be more advanced. But then all they could go by was the audio, and he wasn't saying what was going on because he had to keep his mouth shut.
Yeah, I can't believe because there were guards outside that the party that was like basically just like a dinner party was so loud that the guards couldn't hear.
They didn't hear that safe.
Yeah, I mean, that was a big 25 or 50-pound safe clumping on the ground. And then he just kind of pried it off. It seemed a little flimsy to me, but, then maybe that's kind of the 80s. Like, hey, we have a safe with, like, an actual electronic digital
right. And all you have to do is poke a stick through the back and open it up.
Yeah, well, that makes sense, though. I mean, who's going to move the safe?
But it's pretty funny that he didn't have to crack anything. This type of safe, I'm sure that's how it worked. He just had to have something to get in there because he was trained in safe cracking, obviously.
Obviously, he kind of knew what it was, or, he was a hoodlum and knew how to do it from East Germany. So that was good. Yeah. But, I think, and then, to get on that, I think it's really funny because it's obvious, that there's those obvious moments where he is not from West Germany. Like when he, and we'll go back and talk about him ordering the food in the restaurant, but he picks it up and the report happens to be on a floppy disk. He has no idea what a floppy disk is. Now,
there's this square plastic thing with a hole in the middle.
Yeah, and it looks like it's flimsy. What are we going to do? And they're like, oh, he has a disk. Yeah, it was kind of funny. I mean, I don't even think people, kids these days, let's say if you're 20, you might not even know what that is.
They would know what that is, I'm sure.
They'd be like, hey, what's this thing? So... Yeah,
I would bet if you pulled out even like a 3.25 inch disc, those smaller ones, it would be like, what is it? Everything's on CD-ROM or just digital now, man.
Yeah. Or thumb drive. I mean, it's all like all
thumb drive, right?
It is. I mean, and that was one of those like 5-inch ones, like the mediums. It was like really
I had
bad.
That on my Apple II Plus.
Oh yeah, no kidding. It was just like awful. And he's like, oh, all my data's there. I'm sure it was like a report. It was like an Excel file that just had like 10 characters on it. Look at this. It took a whole disk up. So
now if it was done on the Apple II Plus like I had, I got that when I was when I was in 8th grade. I got it for Christmas that year, and it was right when the Apple II Plus had come out, and my parents like saved up and they got me my first computer. It was like a really big deal, right?
Sure.
And none of my friends had computers, so this was like, wow! I couldn't believe I got a computer. And my parents went down to this computer place. I think it was Farnsworth Computers. They had to drive, like now you can throw a rock and hit a place with computers.
Right.
I think even like Target has them,
Oh, sure.
They had to drive like, 20 miles to go find like the one computer store in the suburbs. Got me an Apple II Plus. When they bought it, the guy says, this is the latest technology. We don't have to worry about, something new coming down for a while. There'll be plenty of software for it. We'll be all good. Okay, January, I believe, it was within weeks of me getting it. So it was either January or February. The Apple IIe came out. Made my Apple II Plus obsolete. And you want to know why? The Apple II Plus versus the Apple IIe, same computer basically, but the Apple II Plus couldn't do lowercase letters.
Nice.
So they got it for me, and it was like all I could play was Zork and a few games. I couldn't do any word processing. I couldn't do anything. Like at school, they're like, "Yeah, you can't use your computer. Number one, we don't take dot matrix, but number two, there's no lowercase." And people, it's like they're screaming at you if you write in uppercase. I'm like, "Yeah, okay."
Yeah, thanks. I'll sit in the corner now and.
Well, I got to play a little, of the original Castle Wolfenstein, so I guess that was worth the whatever.
That's not too bad.
They paid.
There was that, and then there was there was a Dungeons and Dragons game that was for the 2 Plus that you kind of walk through, and it would like be. I don't know if you remember it. I remember because we used to play it. We played it in high school, and it was really a good game for that. But yeah, I think my first computer was do you know what I'm talking about, right? Where you would like come up and there'd be like a ladder and you'd have to up arrow and go up the ladder and down the ladder.
Yes. Yeah, it wasn't like the Dungeons and Dragons games now where you actually roll and it looks like,
Right.
a Dungeon Master. This was more like a moving adventure game.
Right.
I totally forgot about that.
That was
and everything was like all boxy and weird.
Yeah, it was like I hate to say like the first Tron, but it was all like, it was very God, what's the term? It was very boxy and very kind of architectural,
like
and
wireframe and
yeah, it was wireframe. That's exactly what it was. So, but hey,
awesome.
At least you had that one. My first computer was a TRS-80 that loaded stuff off the cassette player, and there was that
cassette player.
It was a cassette player, and it was and it was like a hand-me-down at that point in time. It was like they had already come out with other things, so like I was really lucky to get it, and I was excited. But it had like 24K, I think was the memory.
Right.
It was like ridiculous.
Right.
Your phone has just a million times, but yeah, it was kind of funny. But yeah, I thought it was kind of funny when he looks at it and go, I didn't even think he would know what it was. Because we look at it from.
Well, he didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
He knew that there was something on it because it said top secret, but it's like it's a plastic square with a hole in the middle.
And like,
I think it was Schweppenstadt was the one that was like, it's a floppy disk. Okay, take that.
Yeah. Well, they couldn't communicate. He was just talking into the bug, and then they were kind of like cheering him on, like he did it, and then he decided to take it, which was good. And then he got lucky in the cover story, and then he
got lucky.
Right. I think it's funny. He walked over to the balcony and just kind of threw it to the guy who was at the bottom of the stairs.
Yeah.
At the bottom of the balcony to pick it up. We're just going to throw this disc and maybe destroy it, but who cares? So.
Yeah, right. How about the woman in the bedroom though?
Oh yeah, that was.
When he got in there and she's like, "Oh, I thought you soldier boys live like you are going to die tomorrow," and no, I have a girlfriend. And then she snapped on him. I actually didn't see that coming. I thought she was going to be like a hooker or something,
Exactly.
I know. I thought it was going to be something like that. But then to have her be, Agent May from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and like start kicking his butt. Oh yeah, that was awesome.
And kicking it soundly. There wasn't even like close. She was a deadly assassin, and he was a little boy, which he is. So
yeah.
I
knew that it was going south at the before that I didn't. Where I knew was when she went and she grabbed the thing out of her hair.
Right.
And as soon as she started to grab that, I thought, oh my God, she's going to use that as a weapon. And she did.
Yeah.
I thought she was going to get a shot in too. I mean, she made him bleed, but I thought she was going to get like a puncture, like he'd have to cover that up.
Right.
So he got pretty lucky that he didn't get punctured by that thing.
He was smart. I mean, he was able to defend himself and able, I think it was kind of funny that
he was smart. He opened the door after he closed on her. That's not smart, man.
No. Well, but he was smart enough to cover it up after he, they have the fight. He runs out the door and he thinks he knocks her out or whatever. And then he reopens the door and she attacks him again, and he throws her over the railing onto some concrete, onto some marble down a flight of stairs. And then she just gets up and runs away, and nobody stops her. It's like, huh?
Right.
It's like, oh, that's not very smart. But
well, I think that Emil would agree with you on that. When that guy's like, oh, she got away, so he's like, what? She's a woman got away from you, like gave you the slip. Man, he some heads are gonna roll, man.
Well, yeah,
I don't think he was too happy with our boy Strom there either.
No, he wasn't, but I think that there's a little bit. I think they're building a little bit of suspicion every episode
Yes.
about him, but then they're also deflecting it pretty well. I mean, the girl stole it, and his excuse was a little weak, but he obviously got his butt kicked, so it's not like it could have been that far of a stretch. Because he was bleeding pretty bad, had a gash over his nose, and did all that stuff. But I think they're on the lookout, and they just have to be careful, because if this stuff keeps happening and he's the common denominator,
if he's in the middle of this, like if next week there's a close call again, they're going to be awfully suspicious.
Sure.
And two things happened here. We had that, and we had the sister telling him that, hey, he called East Germany. Now, you would think once Edel gets home, once Edel gets home, that story alone, whether you believe her or you think she's a nut or not,
right?
Absolutely, you're going to check the phone records.
Sure.
If it shows an East German call, Strom is dead meat.
Right.
So if they don't do that, I'll be really surprised. If they just write off the sister-in-law, like, she was fooling around with him, and
I don't think they will, because I think that's going to be the one that's going to get him, or is eventually going to lead him to some kind of trouble, because obviously the daughter's gone to this commune and left because she's not happy. There's a lot of pro-peace talk, among the students, and we'll talk about that in a second. But then the son Alex also is starting to turn a little bit, and it's obvious that he doesn't want to be there, and so I wonder what's going to happen with that, and if that's where Kramer's going to have to fall on the sword and take the hit for whatever happens. So
I was wondering about that with Alex.
Right.
Here's this guy who's going to these peace rallies. He even said to his dad, I just want to live in a peaceful world.
Right.
I don't want conflict in the world. Yet this guy is running hot. And when he went to where Yvonne was, his solution for dealing with it was to start kicking that hippie's butt.
Right.
So I'm not sure about this guy.
Well, I think first and foremost, he's a soldier, and he's a soldier's son. So, I think he's from that era where, he still kind of remembers a lot of the conflict. So I think he has that anger, but I also think he wants it to be peaceful, because, the whole thing with Tishbir being like this peace revolutionary is very, very interesting. So is he really the spy, or is he really the peace guy? Which way is he going to go when push comes to shove, even though he's, said all along?
I think he's the peace guy that's working with the spies. I think that what we think he is exactly what he is.
Well, good. So, and it's kind of interesting that Alex came upon this. So, who knows what's going to happen? Because even the lady who brought in Tishbir to speak, who's like the head of the revolution or whatever, is saying, he must be, his father is high up in the German army. That's interesting. So, something's going to play with that.
Right. Yeah, that was an interesting scene all the way around. And the fact that Tishbir was so out in the open with that, I thought was interesting. Because I thought he'd be more underground, but he was walking around outside with Strom.
Right.
Obviously they were in a secluded area, but I don't know, man. There's soldiers everywhere, and somebody might see them, and then he's, in this public place talking about peace, and I'm like, wow, I just feel like he's putting a huge target on his back.
Well, was he?
But I think he is what he's portraying to be. I think he's a peacenik who's working with this spy program to try to stop the war.
Sure, and he's obviously plays that professor role really well, and he's been there for a long time, so that kind of fits. I think it fits his persona, like you were saying. So I think that's really good. And then we kind of touch base. The whole thing with the girlfriend. That's typical. I could see. She's really attractive. I could see her being a little bit lonely, and then when
it was like it seemed to me these guys were in love, and she's just like, all right, well, he's not around right now. And the other guy even asks about him, and she's like, I don't want to talk about that right now. I'm like, man,
yeah,
she's moving on.
Yeah, she moved on pretty quick, or she just did there, and then of course,
but then she didn't.
Right. Well, then the aunt comes in and says, "Oh, she's lonely. I'm worried about her." Totally played the family thing, and then's going to get the girlfriend to live with, her quote unquote future mother-in-law. So, she's a master at it, and she just looks that part and does it really well. So,
yeah.
So I kind of enjoyed all those twists. I think that was, they kind of brought it in, kind of eased us into the show, and then the second show they really kind of threw a twist in almost every character's persona. Like where the like the general is like the not caring dad. The family's all kind of messed up. They're kind of entitled. They're doing that. Stram is actually kind of proving himself, all sorts of other things, and then it just kind of it's like, hey, there's a lot of potential with this. So
I like that he's so true to his character, though. The only reason he's doing this is for his mother.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like I have this patriotic drive to. No, he doesn't like that he's in this position. He doesn't like what he's having to do. Turns out he's good at it,
right?
But all he wants is to protect his mother, and they better pony up with something for the mother soon, because he's going to be a problem for him.
Oh yeah, well he's going to be, and I think he actually is starting to. I know he doesn't absolutely enjoy it, but he, after he kind of defeated that, whatever, if it's Chinese, Asian spy or whatever, he kind of had looking in the mirror. Yeah, he's like, yeah, man, I'm the shit. He's like, excuse me, I'm the guy.
He was.
He's like, I'm the guy. He's like, yeah, I got some battle wounds. Look at me, I'm a real soldier. Because I think he's in the army, but he wasn't. Not that he wasn't in the army and a soldier, but it's not like he was fighting. So he was.
It totally, to me, was his Joker moment.
Yep.
Did you watch Gotham? Did you see the Joker episode of Gotham?
I did not. So
okay, they're interrogating this guy, and he's telling this story, and then all of a sudden he kind of makes that same kind of face and kind of starts laughing, and you go, "Oh, it's gonna be the Joker." That's what this was to me. When he was looking at the mirror, and all of a sudden he goes, I was like, "Uh-oh, he's the Joker."
Yeah,
wouldn't that be crazy if this turned into the Batman story, German Batman story?
Yes, that would be great. Michael Keaton shows up; it'd be perfect. So
no, the Fledermaus from The Tick. It's the Fledermaus.
That would be awesome. That would be it all turns into Gotham. Then Spider-Man shows up, and it'd be
then it's everything. And then Godzilla, and I am the happiest guy on the planet.
And then
they all get in a U-boat.
That's right. Yay. And they do a remake of Das Boot, and then it's all crazy. So,
but all the characters are Spider-Man and the Joker and Godzilla.
Yeah, and then the Americans are DC characters coming after them.
Oh yeah.
See, we could do it. We can make it. We can make this happen.
Sure. You know what? Hey, Sundance, want to do a crazy remake?
Yeah, it won't cost
you guys with some ideas.
It won't cost you that much money. No, it's not.
No, and you know what? We'll write it and submit it to you on floppies, because we're probably the last two guys that have that.
That's right. I think I could still rev one up from some corner of someplace. So.
Oh yeah, I guarantee my dad still has my computer.
Imagine, I was thinking about that the other day. One of I had an old computer, something that I had pulled out of a pile, and I was like, would that even connect to the internet today, or would it just explode? Would it go too much data?
Yeah,
like an old, I can't modem or something. That'd be like
it wouldn't be fast enough to get going anywhere. Yeah, no, no, I can't imagine that. I mean, it would probably be able to connect, but it would be so slow because the internal modem on it is so freaking slow.
It'd be awful processing. It would be
terrible.
Unbelievable. So
yeah.
So,
okay, 80s moments.
Yes.
Last time we had some good, solid 80s moments. There weren't as many here, but there were a few. What did you get?
To be the thing that I kind of focused on was, I didn't get too many of the 80s things just because I was kind of wrapped up in the, I think the biggest 80s moment, the one that I noticed was the shorts of the guy that when they went bicycle riding. I thought that was a very 80s, like the high end tighties. It's like right out of the NBA from from that era.
Totally.
But I was
that was the guy with the tucked in shirt and everything too.
Yeah,
and like the way his shirt even looked up on the top, like the cut was so 80s.
It was so bad. Well, his hair was and the bad mustache. I mean, it was just it was all bad 80s. Just like it was like
that mustache was something else, man.
Well, they're all horrible. I mean, even Tish Beers is like, he's kind of like it's just bad.
Yeah, it looked kind of like porn stash on Orange Is the New Black. If you ever see that,
absolutely it was. And then like the floppy disk was totally 80s. It's like, here we go. We have this thing from the 80s. You're like, yeah, that only happened for a few years, and I'm glad that's over. And especially those ones, because those were
they held no data either.
No, they were.
I would like to actually, because I'm not sure, I would actually like to take some of the music, like write down the songs and see what the release time was. Because if this is 1983, I wonder, was like that, there was a Cure song in here, they played Boys Don't Cry. Was that 83? Are they a little too early? I'm not sure.
Right. And then I was I kind of had the same idea you did. I would love it if somebody would post a soundtrack. I don't know, but I would think they would be all pretty current. I would hope they would be, because it seemed like there was a lot of music at that time, whether it was older or newer. Whether Europe is ahead of or behind, I'm sure there's some of both. I thought, again, the music was very good, period piece. So
yeah,
I thought that was,
yeah, I thought it was great. I just wonder how accurate it is. Like if we were to take the songs, write them down, and then match them up against release dates, are we right on? Because that would be really cool if they've got like last week when they were playing Nina with 99 Luftballons. If they did that, and we find out that 3 weeks later Boys Don't Cry hit the charts,
right?
Like, oh, hey, that's really, really cool. Even if they don't have it quite that accurate, even if we find out, these are the songs in 83, like is that the Cure song? Was that out in 83? Or are they just saying, hey, this is kind of early 80s and just kind of lumping it together, like the Goldbergs does? The Goldbergs plays, their stuff, they always say, it's 1980 something.
Yeah.
And they're really all over the board with it. This is more accurate to the time, but how accurate are they?
Well, 99 Luftballons was recorded in 1982, so that's very accurate. That's right in the time.
That would have been a hit, yeah.
Yeah, that would have been a hit, because, sometimes they don't make it out right away, so... I'm going to look at it we'll see if that, how that...
Boys Don't Cry. Look up Boys Don't Cry for the Cure.
On the interwebs, yes, I'm looking at it. So.
Use your Apple IIe, see if you can get on there.
Apple IIe.
No, you have a TRS-80 or a TSR-80, whatever
it was a TRS-80. It was horrible, horrendous. That song was released in 1980, so it would have been popular back then.
That would have worked.
They would have been playing it back then, so...
That would have worked. Especially European radio did play more of that alternative stuff that, here we didn't have alternative radio until much later.
No.
So like, I had some of that music. I had REM and I had some Cure and stuff like that I had found, but that was because you went into record stores and found them. There was only one radio station here in Chicago that played any of that stuff.
Yep.
But there it was more prominent. Like when you watch the stuff from the BBC, like their music shows in that from that time, absolutely, those are the bands that are on.
Was Jules Holland back then too? I'm just teasing. So
I don't know.
He probably was.
I'd love it if he was.
Something. That would have been fantastic. That would have been great. But I remember in college, the only way you heard about those underground bands, and because I don't want to say being a little bit older, being 2 years older than you are, you looked at Rolling Stone magazine because that was your Bible of underground music, and then you had.
Can you imagine? Because that was not underground music on Rolling Stone, but at that time,
they had the college playlist, which was different.
Yes, the college playlist. 20. That's exactly. I used to go to that on the back page, and I'd go to the record store and I'd try to buy like singles off of that.
Right, absolutely.
So that's how I got exposed to that stuff.
Well, I remember going, when I was in college, and this is '84, before they ever had a big hit. Before they got a little bit of radio play, but not much before they were ever huge. Nobody had really heard of them, or they were getting some buzz, but they were very underground. and going to see them at the University of Iowa and it being packed, like 15,000 people went to see them. And you couldn't buy a song of theirs on the radio. This is before like even Orange Crush or Stand or any of the where they started to actually become a little bit more mainstream popular. And they were huge on that, that college the college radio station thing in Rolling Stone. So yeah, I mean there wasn't. I mean, what you were referring to XRT, right? Earlier when you were talking about radio,
WXRT,
yeah, and they didn't even play like the college underground stuff. They were really into even the more European underground stuff. Like they were playing the Stooges and they were playing Velvet Underground and all of that stuff. I mean, they were going way beyond like what was American, that American alt scene. They were like in the total European alt scene, and like you couldn't even, I don't want to say come close to it. So every once in a while they might pop something in, but it was very, or like the late 70s stuff that nobody heard of. So
yeah, right.
Some of the old Cure or whatever, but it was good. I mean, it was really good.
Yeah. Well, and it's what spawned the whole, alternative radio scene. So
sure.
I just wonder. I'm going to have to do that on the next episode. In fact, Martha didn't get to watch this one with me.
Okay.
And I know she liked it last week. I might just jot down the names of the songs and then look them up and just make sure a time frame. But I just have a feeling this is really accurate, and it's going to match up to the stuff that we would have been like, yeah, here we go.
Well, I think it's close. And I mean, that Boys Don't Cry song was huge, and then it was also in a bunch of movies. So, that kind of always got relived a little bit. Because wasn't there a movie back then about that too? One of those, I hate to say bad 80s movies because most of them were bad anyway, or most movies are bad any time, let alone the 80s. But I thought there was one that was the theme song from it. So I'm sure it kind of came back. But yeah, I looked on Wiki to see if somebody had listed the songs, and I think that would be a very interesting thing to do.
Yeah,
so,
you know what? We can put a song list together and put it on the 80s Reboot webpage.
Yeah. Didn't Dave talk about that or something on Spotify? I can't remember. So if there is, that would be great. So.
Well, you know what we could do, actually? There are a couple of places where you can create a playlist. Like Spotify, you can do it. And then, what's the name of that other one? I can't remember the name of it. We'll get it for you. But
Soundgarden, that's a band? Oh, sorry.
No. Way back when we started, we had our very first show, before we even put them online, when we were practicing, it was Input Junkie. And one of the guys would talk about music a lot. And we figured out that you could take this one app and you could create a playlist that had anybody could access.
Oh, wow.
So we were like, hey, we should make an Input Junkie playlist. The problem is we didn't have enough songs to put one together yet. So we said, okay, like 6 months from now, we'll start doing that. But I could look this up, because if we could figure out what this is, we can just keep rolling in the new songs as they go in.
Oh, yeah, that would be good. So,
all right, we're going to do that. That's cool.
Yeah, that would be awesome. So I think that would be good, because it's great music, and it's right from our, late junior high to high school years. So.
Our wheelhouse. Absolutely, man.
Right when it was there.
Yeah, 83, you would have been a junior, I would have been a freshman, right?
Yes.
So.
I mean, I think that was still Lindemann years, wasn't it? Was that My Body? No, that was a little bit later. This was already Breakfast Club, I think, 83, wasn't it?
83, it might be. It might have been that summer of 83.
Right.
Well, Lindemann, that was 82, I think. 82, 83.
Or even younger, because it was like, and then back in the day, it went from everybody wore army jackets and those big hiking clodhopper boots to it being preppy and everybody wearing pastel polos. Because I think Weird Science came out, or one of those Rat Pack movies came out, and you're just like, okay. And then it just, John Hughes all of a sudden became a big deal, and it changed.
Everyone was dressing like Ferris or...
Oh, yeah. Ferris and, all that stuff. So
or Breakfast Club, yeah.
And obviously, you grew up close to the area. I grew up right in the area where all those John Hughes movies were made. Nobody dressed like that until John Hughes made the movies. Right. Nobody I knew dressed like that. Not a person.
But and then as soon as those movies came out, it was like, we live here. We're dressing this way.
We have to dress the part. So,
well, all right. Did we talk this one out? Are we ready to move on?
I think so. I think there were like a couple things. I think he didn't make as many obvious mistakes, although he still is getting acclimated to the freer world. Like where he ordered a steak for lunch, and he ordered, "I want a steak from a cow," and instead she offered him like
I brought your cow steak.
Yeah, do you want a fillet, a porterhouse, or whatever? And he's like, "I want one from a cow." And I thought that was kind of funny. And then like how he didn't react very well when she asked for his room number. You would think that anybody that had been kind of in the West would understand you're just signing for it and putting it on your room. Where he didn't. Yeah. He just was like,
he didn't understand that at all.
Yeah, he didn't understand that part. And then not knowing the floppy, which I thought was very funny. I was like laughing my butt off when he's like, he has this thing and it's got holes in it. I'm like, oh, dude. I thought that was just a very funny part of that where he didn't really understand the Western culture.
Yeah. So that was good.
Well, and then, and then to throw it off a little bit where the girlfriend is cheating on Martin, and then kind of foreshadowing where Martin or, Moritz, however you want to say, whatever you want to say, his name's Strom, all of a sudden meets the secretary of the guy that he stole the floppy disk from, and he starts flirting with her, and he needed a drink and she offered one to him, and so they're kind of sitting there, and I'm kind of like, oh, what's going to happen here? Because
I don't say,
and she's cute and young and kind of is kind of liking him. He's like, oh,
yeah, they're both kind of giving the look out of the side of their eyes, and
they're like two little high school girls, two little high school or junior high kids sitting on a couch. Like, do we touch hands? Do we kiss? Do we talk? Or do we just sit here? And I thought it was kind of cute, but also I could see absolutely where that could go somewhere, possibly either that or with the daughter. So who knows where that's going to go? So
or maybe both.
Or maybe both. You never know. Well, I mean, I'm sure they're going to put him in a position to have to do something with one of them, and he may not want to, or he probably won't because of his girlfriend. But then he'll.
I bet he does. I bet he doesn't want to, but I bet he does.
Well, because he was
the secretary.
Yeah, well, he was kind of hesitant with the girl who was the waitress that ended up being the spy. But I definitely thought he would have done that. I definitely thought he would have been like, "Yeah, I just did this great thing. I'm going to celebrate a little bit." So.
Yep.
Because she was
especially when he finds out that his girlfriend is hanging out with that porn stash teacher.
Oh yeah, that guy. Well, but he'll never find out about that. Why would he find out unless she tells him? So I mean, he might not even see her again, not even see her for a while. So because I think the more success,
who knows how long before he sees his mom?
Yeah, the more success he has, the longer he's going to stay, and that's pretty much going to be forever. So or until the wall comes down, which is
until that wall comes down.
That's right. He's got a few few years at least of that. So I think we talked it out. I thought like I said in the beginning of the open, I think there's a lot of possibilities with the show. I really really like it. It's not so fast moving. There's a lot of intellectualism to the show. I mean, I think you really got to think about it, and it's a lot about the characters interacting because there isn't a lot of that big kind of action. But it's really, really good and really, really enjoyable, and I'm really hooked. And the Rotten Tomatoes, ratings are through the roof. They're all 100. It's 100%.
Yeah, and they should be. I mean, this is really great. I'm really anxious to see the next one.
Yeah, so, all right. Like you said, there's no I don't even notice the subtitles anymore at all. It's just I'm engrossed in it, so I just believe it. So I think it's good. It's really good.
Cool. Well, I'm going to wrap it up, Chris.
Yeah, sounds good.
You can find past episodes of this and all of our podcasts at www.southgatemediagroup.com. And specifically, you can find this on the 80s Reboot page. I will create its own page for this, but we'll also have the episodes, or at least links to the episodes, at 80s Reboot. They're also, at the same time on the same feed, doing Halt and Catch Fire, which is a lot of fun. So if you're not watching that show, get on that. It's on AMC, and I forget what they call it. Auto Exec Bat. That's the name, which is great. That's the name of their one on 80s Reboot. So
and that's the one about the starting of there. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I apologize.
Well, I was just going to say Dave and the other guys are just doing an awesome job on 80s Reboot. What were you going to say about Halt and Catch Fire?
That's the one about the startup of IBM kind of era thing. Right? Yeah. So I bet that looks really interesting too. So
well, and once again. So 80s. I I've only seen one episode, and it was awesome. So that's one I'm planning to binge out at some point.
Cool. Hey.
So I know a show that can be on.
I know, absolutely, in another 6 months or 4 months.
Yeah, we'll get it on binge-worthy out at the Blue Box. Well, okay. So there you go. You can follow me on Twitter at rsouthgate. You can follow the company on Twitter at SMG Pods. Chris, where can they follow you?
They can follow me at Blue Box Cafe or theblueboxcafe.com and at Blue Box Cafe on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all of that good stuff. So
yeah, well, on Twitter, it's Blue Box Cafe 176.
Yes.
Got to make sure they know that so that they don't
thanks.
like just type it in. So
yeah,
yeah, and we're everywhere too. And we also have a YouTube channel. Just type in Southgate Media Group, and that's been getting some nice attention. There's just a lot of stuff going on. It's a lot of fun, and I just love doing this. I'm glad we get to do this together. So
yeah, thanks. Good.
That's it. Until next time. Thanks for listening, everybody. We will catch you on the Deutsch side.
Sounds good. Auf Wiedersehen, everyone.